of the AFL CIO. He's a Marine, and he served for 6 years with India Company, 3rd Battalion, 24th Marines, including a tour of duty in 2004 in Fallujah, Iraq. He's a product of a union household. Will is also a member of UPAT, the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades in Washington, D.C., and Will is here today to talk to us about the Union Veterans Council. Please join me in welcoming Director Will Fischer.
Thank you so very much. And good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
It's wonderful for me to be back in Illinois. It's wonderful for me to be back in Illinois. It's so very special to be here. And let me tell you, President Smith remarked, he mentioned Haymarket a moment ago, and I would be remiss if I didn't tell you one of the reasons it's so special for me to come back here, despite what my accent may suggest. You know, when my great-grandfather and his brother first immigrated to this country, they came from Bremen, Germany. And they moved to Chicago, and they worked in the newspaper business. And my great-grandfather's brother was a guy named Adolf Fischer. It's not a very popular first name anymore. And Adolf was a print setter and was working right here in Chicago and doing an organizing campaign, set the type and made up the leaflet that said "Working Men to Arms" for the Haymarket rally. And he was one of the Haymarket conspirators who was later hanged as a result. So it's always very, very special for me as a trade unionist to be able to come back to the state of Illinois. It's also very special to me because when I first got involved in the professional side of the labor movement, working in politics, and organizing and legislative fights, it was here. And being able to work with President Kerrigan, Secretary Treasurer Dre, and with many of you all, that I first got my start. And what seems like yesterday is getting to be, some years ago. So I just can't say thank you enough to all of you, President Kerrigan and Secretary Treasurer Dre, because whether it was politics, community services, or now the Union Veterans Council, there's nobody who has been as supportive and wonderful to work with as the Illinois AFL CIO and this labor movement. So thank you very, very much. And thank you to each of you for allowing me a few moments of your time here today to discuss some issues and ideas which are very, very special to me, but they're also very important to each of us and that are vital to the success of our movement and to the whole of the working class. Now, before moving forward, I'd like to do a quick exercise. Would all the veterans in the room please raise their hands? All right, now keep them up, keep them up. Now, how about everybody with a spouse, mother, father, brother, sister, son, or daughter who's a veteran? Raise their hand. All right, now keep them up, keep them up. Now, how about everybody who knows a veteran in their local union back home? Raise their hand. Now, take a look around. Take a look around. We can set our hands down. Was anybody surprised to see how many people just now had their hands in the air? Anybody? Well, just in case any of you were, you shouldn't have been. You see, I could leave this hall, and I could walk out onto any local union meeting, onto any job site, shop floor, factory, mill, grocery store, VA hospital, post office, you name it. Anywhere in Illinois, and make that exact same request. Would all the veterans here please raise their hand, and I would have had the exact same response. You see, sisters and brothers, that's because when you find yourself talking to an audience of people who work, you're talking to an audience of people who serve. And when you see somebody fighting for their and our rights on the job here at home, very often that same person has already tasted battle and fought for our nation overseas. And that's very much at the core of what I want to talk with you about here today. You know, every movement, every union, every organization begins with an idea. Very often it's a pretty simple idea. It's the idea and dreams of something that will give a movement birth, nourish it through infancy, and sustain it through adversity. And the Union Veterans Council is no different. Sisters and brothers, at the end of the day, our job, our purpose is simply to make the lives of veterans and the working class better. To show that the issues that are facing veterans and those that are facing the working class aren't independent of each other. To advocate so that when someone comes home and takes off their uniform, they're able to go to work and get a good job, a career. Not just a job, but a good job. To mobilize so that when someone comes home and takes off that uniform, they're able to have access to quality health care we earned, and health care that's delivered through a strong fully funded and fully staffed VA. And to organize sisters and brothers, so that when somebody comes home and takes off that uniform, they're able to go to work carrying with them basic dignity, respect, and the ability to collectively bargain for a fair reward for the job that they do. That's what the Union Veterans Council is all about. We fight for those who fought for us, and we stand together for a better life. Now you would think, based on the rhetoric we hear so often, that everything I've said thus far would have wide support. Wide support. You'd think everybody out there running for anything, whether that's President of the United States, the U.S. Senate, governor, or the smallest office in the smallest town in Illinois, tell you that veterans ought to be able to have access to good jobs and a quality VA. After all, politicians love to talk about how much they love veterans, don't they? You can't find somebody out there in the campaign trail that won't toss that baby aside there getting ready to kiss if they get a chance to lay their arm around a veteran. Put a veteran in their TV commercial. Standing up in a truck bed, giving a speech, talk about how much we have to stand with veterans, have the backs of veterans, honor the sacrifices of veterans. But you know, every time I hear anybody talk like that, I always have a few questions for them. Is it pro-veteran to support right-to-work laws? Is it pro-veteran to try to destroy and privatize our VA? Is it pro-veteran to support bad trade deals that rip jobs from veterans and send them overseas? Of course not. Of course not. You saw how many veterans in this room right now. You know how many veterans are in your local unions back home? And yet, these are the actions, the ones I mentioned just a moment ago, that are carried out by some of those who claim so loudly to be pro-veteran. They're the same folks who sent me, many of you and your loved ones, all over the world to fight and make sure our nation had a future. And now that we're back home, and now that they're finished with us, they do everything they can to keep us from having a future of our own. Make no mistake about it, sisters and brothers, make no mistake about it. The exact same people who are out there and willing to go out and start wars and send in the working class to fight them with our blood are the exact same people, the exact same stock, who are more than willing to amass a fortune off the sweat and labor of veterans once we return back home. But I got some news for those folks. The veteran class is the working class, and an attack on workers is an attack on veterans. Not just in some sectors, but all sectors. Not in some states, but all states. Not sometimes, but every time. You can't call yourself pro-veteran if you're anti-union. And if you come after us, we're going to come after you. And we're going to keep coming and keep coming and keep coming until we get back what is rightfully ours. Now, moving on a bit, aside from what's already been mentioned, there's a little bit that I want to talk to y'all about the new and unlikely battlefield in the war on veterans and the war on workers. And I want to talk to y'all a little bit now about the VA. And right out of the gate, let me just tell you, for the veterans who are treated at the VA and for the veterans who work at the VA, the stakes could not be any higher. Just a little background. In the wake of last year's secret waitlist scandal, where VA managers got caught rigging the scheduling system to make it appear that more veterans were being treated than actually were, Congress gave some authority to the VA Secretary to get rid of some of those bad managers and some resources to hire on some new staff, many of whom were veterans, to take care of the influx of new patients coming into the VA system. And you know, today the VA is seeing more patients than ever before and continuing to provide quality, integrated care that's designed specifically for veterans. Now, don't get me wrong. There's work to be done. There's still progress to be made, but things are headed in the right direction. But some people want to keep that a secret. You see, rather than enjoying and finding new ways to improve care for veterans, some people have used these troubles of the VA as an opportunity to chip away at basic workplace rights, to strip VA employees of due process rights, and as an opportunity to make inroads into destroying and privatizing our VA. And I think everybody in this room knows privatization, that's a fancy word for saying, I'm going to let my billionaire buddies profit off the care of veterans. All this despite the fact that not even 3 weeks ago, the RAND Corporation came out with a new study saying that the VA provides equal or better care than the private sector across the board. All this despite the fact that veterans and veteran service organizations regularly speak out denouncing the idea of our VA being privatized. All this despite the fact that recent bipartisan polling has shown that nearly 70% of veterans would categorically oppose the candidacy of any politician who supported privatizing our VA. So you're left asking yourself, well, who supports this? Who supports this? Well, for one, that chicken hawk charlatan Donald Trump, he supports this. Actually, Donald's so keen in talking about me and my fellow veterans all the time. You care if I talk to y'all a little bit about Donald Trump as a veteran? Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Here we have somebody who compares their sex life in the 80s and 90s to serving in combat in Vietnam. Somebody who says that when our young women and men are hit by roadside bombs in Iraq and Afghanistan, just go for a little ride in the air. Someone who calls people like John McCain and other prisoners of war losers because they were captured. Someone who attacks Gold Star families. We let that sink in for a little bit, gang. Where are we? Huh? Where are we in our politics? Where we have somebody, in this case, the Republican Party's nominee for President of the United States, attacking Gold Star families. People who have already sacrificed more than many can even begin to imagine. And somebody who only 4 weeks ago stood on a stage, waved a Purple Heart in the air, and said, you know, I've always wanted a Purple Heart. You know, when Mr. Trump made those comments, I had a reporter call me in my capacity as head of the Union Veterans Council say, Donald Trump has always said he wanted a Purple Heart. What do you think about that? And I just said the first thing came to mind. I told him that the first thing that I thought of when I heard Mr. Trump make those comments was August the 19th, 2004. You see, on August the 19th, 2004, I was awarded a Purple Heart. And my Marine Corps brother who got his arm blown off that day, he was awarded a Purple Heart. My Marine brother who lost an eye that day, he was awarded a Purple Heart. And my Marine brother who was killed that day, he was awarded a Purple Heart that his widow later had to receive on his behalf. You see, what Donald Trump didn't learn in that elite military prep school he went to is that Purple Hearts are reminders of very bad days. And nobody with one ever won it. Nobody with one ever won it. This is somebody who categorically wants to send more young American women and men into combat. Not his kids. Not his kids. Donnie Jr., Ivanka, Eric, they're not putting on a flak jacket anytime soon. But I'm telling you right now, gang, if this son of a bitch gets elected president, your kids will, and your kids will, and your kids will. And it's mighty bold talk. Come from somebody who dodged service when it was their time with the help of multiple deferments and having a rich dad. But let me be real clear about something, gang. This anti-veteran, anti-working class nonsense extends well beyond the race for the presidency. You see, when you hear me talk about those politicians who like to come back to the states, go back into your communities, talk about how much they love veterans, then they go to Washington, D.C., and they vote against us every chance they get. There's one fellow who comes to mind almost immediately. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Mark Kirk. That's right, Mark Kirk. You see, despite the rhetoric that Senator Kirk has when he's back home, when in Washington, D.C., it's a different story. Since becoming the senator for Illinois, Mark Kirk voted against funding for veterans' health care benefits. He voted against funding for veterans' education benefits. He voted against funding for veterans' job training benefits. Oh, but just like with Donald, it goes much deeper than that. Much deeper than that. You see, Mark Kirk is also what we in the veteran community refer to as a stolen valor violator. He's a liar. He lies about his service. See, Mark Kirk says that he's a combat veteran. He's not. Mark Kirk said he was awarded the Naval Intelligence Officer of the Year award. He wasn't. Mark Kirk tries to portray himself as a person of integrity. He's not. Now, does that sound like the actions of someone that anybody in this room would call pro-veteran? Does that sound like somebody who gives a damn about the 721,000 plus veterans who call Illinois home? And why? Why would someone take these anti-veteran positions like Mark Kirk has? Why? It's very simple. Because he was told to. Because he was told to. And he has support. You didn't think these tyrants acted alone, did you? No, in fact, they've gone out and started their very own Koch brothers-funded veterans group. The Concerned Veterans for America. Their very own band of Judases. A group of folks who, and I don't hesitate in saying it for a moment, are traitors to their fellow veterans. They offer strong financial backing and full-throated support for privatizing the VA, for privatizing military retirement benefits, and for carrying the Koch brothers billionaire class, anti-worker, anti-veteran message into our working class fights all across this country. And I'll tell you, gang, they're out there and they're trying to organize. They're trying to bring people together. They're trying to spread more and more of their venomous propaganda. And they're working mighty hard to get people like Donald Trump and Mark Kirk elected. But I have some good news. We're better at it than they are, and we can shut down Donald Trump and Mark Kirk's asses come the 8th of November if we do our job. When we do our job, when we have those conversations that we need to have, when we hit those doors, when we hit our work sites, when we hit those phones, you see, that's because standing with veterans and with the working class, and in stark contrast to the rhetoric and actions of our enemies, we have champions for veterans and the workers in people like Tammy Duckworth and Secretary Hillary Clinton. The first person I want to talk to you with you about now is Congresswoman Duckworth, my fellow veteran. I think people know Congresswoman's history in the military. This is somebody who did not begin her service, her public service, by putting her name on a ballot, but rather by putting on a pair of combat boots and hopping into a helicopter. And since coming home and recovering from her injuries, she stood shoulder to shoulder with workers and with veterans. And as a U.S. Senator, she'll continue to do the same. And in terms of this race for the presidency, let me say it as crystal clear as I can. I'm a veteran, I'm working class, and I'm with her. And I'm with Hillary Clinton because she's with us, and she always has been. You see, veterans in the working class, we're not political props for Hillary Clinton. We're human beings. That's why as First Lady, it was Hillary Clinton who was out there raising awareness around issues that were affecting Gulf War veterans. That's why it was Hillary Clinton as the United States Senator who championed legislation like the 21st Century GI Bill. And that's why it'll be President of the United States that President Hillary Clinton, man, that sounds good. That's why it'll be President Hillary Clinton who, working alongside Tammy Duckworth, will work to expand veterans' education benefits, expand veterans' job training benefits, and under no circumstances allow our VA to be destroyed and privatized. No, instead they'll build on the successes that the VA is already having and work to get us a fully funded, fully staffed VA and an equipped VA that's able to provide the health care to every veteran in this country who earned it. Now let me ask you, are we ready to work to get Hillary Clinton and Tammy elected? Are we ready to work to rid ourselves of swine like Donald Trump and Mark Kirk? Are we ready to fight? Well, good, because I'll tell you right now, it wasn't but 15 years ago I was a young recruit at Parris Island, South Carolina, and it was there I learned two very, very valuable lessons. Number one, in the immortal words of Marine Corps legend Chesty Puller, to hurt him, you gotta hit him. And number two, the mission of a Marine Corps rifle squad is to locate, close with, and destroy the enemy by fire and maneuver, and to repel enemy assault through fire and close combat. Now, of course, that's the attitude and mindset that I took to Iraq. But it's also the attitude and mindset that I take to work every day. And that is the attitude and mindset that we're going to have to take to win these fights. We're going to have to take the fight to them, sisters and brothers. We have to out-organize them. We have to spread more truth. And I'm telling you right now, with your help and through this organizing, we'll whip these bastards, and not just in the voting booth this fall, but in state houses, D.C., and in working class fights all across this country. Woo! this, right? How we gonna do this? Well, as it was mentioned in my introduction, I'm the executive director of the Union Veterans Council, and in that role, I work with our affiliated unions, our federation bodies, state feds, central labor councils, local unions, allies and partners, to bring working class veterans together to speak out on the issues that are impacting us most. And yes, of course, we have those conversations, trade unionist to trade unionist, working class person to working class person. But we're also having those conversations veteran to veteran. And we're growing every single day. We're growing every single day. And I'll tell you, we're growing for three main reasons. Number one, I'm afforded very generously many opportunities like this today. I have yet to find myself in an audience of people who work, whether it's at a state fed convention, international union meeting, break room, lunch and learn, or job site, talking to a group of workers that I have not also been talking to a group of veterans. People finding out we're existing, they sign up. Makes sense. Second reason, we are the only group out there talking with, to, and about veterans as a class and lifting up the fact that the veteran class and the working class are one and the same. And number three, we are being very aggressive in inserting ourselves into political, legislative, and organizing fights. Now, in terms of politics, what we do more than anything is cut through that rhetoric and focus on the record. Despite what people might be saying, we're going to let people know how they vote. And we're already working with the Illinois AFL CIO and many of the unions that you belong to get you veteran-specific worksite leaflets, sample local union mail. We're having rallies and events in states all across this country. We're doing a lot more earned media attention, getting op-eds and letters to the editor's place. And we have a tremendous amount of social media activity. Again, bringing working class veterans together to talk about this election, but having those conversations veteran to veteran. Now, in terms of legislative fights, some of y'all probably do some lobbying on occasion. Am I right? Well, now, for you veterans in the room, if you're going in there to do that lobbying, does it ever cross your mind to maybe go in there as a veteran? Right? Let me just give you an example. I'm flying back to Washington, D.C. this afternoon. Tomorrow, I could walk up on the Hill. Hi, Will Fischer, member of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, District Council 51. I'm here to talk to you about why the Trans-Pacific Partnership is bad for me and my fellow workers. Now, what are some I'm going to say? Your union said you're here to tell me that. Now, what if instead I walked into that office? Hi, I'm Will Fischer. I'm an Iraq War veteran, a United States Marine, and I'm here to talk about why the Trans-Pacific Partnership is bad for me and my fellow veterans. Right? Sounds a little different. Same working class message, same union message, but we're delivering it through that veteran lens. Now, in terms of organizing, I know we have some federal employees in here, right? 100% open shop environment. Obviously, I have the same kind of conversation when I go to right to work states. When you have that new hire come on, and you find out that he or she is a veteran, let's have a veteran who's already active in the local go have that conversation with that person about the union difference and about solidarity, but have that conversation veteran to veteran. As I mentioned a moment ago, we're growing every day, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask each of you to take the time, whether right now or later, to join us as well. It takes you 10 seconds and doesn't cost you anything. You just simply visit us at unionveterans.org, and that's unionveterans.org, and add your name. I know many of you are very active on social media. So are we. I would encourage each of you as well, who are, to visit us on Facebook at the Union Veterans Council's Facebook page and give us a like. Look, here's the reality. I can't be everywhere. You can't be everywhere. And you can't be everywhere. But together, we can. So when you get that first email, when you see something we put out there on social media that you like, don't keep it to yourself. Share that with your sisters and brothers at the local. Share that with the sisters and brothers in your community, people you worship with, people you participate in other community activities with. Help us build this veteran-driven fighting force, a fighting force out there for the whole working class. Brothers and sisters, I think it goes without saying that we are meeting today at a historic time. We are meeting at a historic time. We have two people running for president. One who has a plan to keep Americans safe, bringing people together, and another person who has no real plans. someone whose plans consist basically of insulting our military, attacking veterans, alienating our allies, and fan dancing for authoritarian figures like Vladimir Putin. We are meeting at a historic time. And veterans, once again, we are on the front lines. We have, though, as veterans, a unique opportunity to shape the way that we and others talk about the trade union movement, talk about our political fights, talk about our organizing fights, and talk about our legislative battles. We have that opportunity as veterans. Look, the next election cycle, it's not around the corner, it's here. It's 41 days from now. And when we do our job, when we lift up who we really are and what we believe in, and we lift up who the enemy really is and what they believe in, the people are on our side. In the end, sisters and brothers, the movement that's successful is the one that has not forgotten its mission, its charge, or its simple idea. To the veterans in the room, to my fellow veterans, you know, we're veterans because at some point we answered the call to fight and make sure that our nation had a future. But now we're back home. Now we're back home, and it's on us to organize to fight to make sure that we have a future. It's on us now that we're back home to organize and expel those from office who prey upon us. It's on us now that we're back home to organize and meet our enemies in the streets here at home the same way we met our enemies in the streets abroad. It's on us to organize to fight a new war, but our war, a war for our future, our voice, our dignity, a war against greed and against suffering. Together, sisters and brothers, we can toss off the chains of economic slavery the same way we used to toss off a flak jacket at the end of an evening patrol, but only if we organize. Look, organizing must be first, foremost, and fundamental. But I'm telling you right now, if we do this work, and we do this organized, not only are we going to find ourselves again fighting together, but we're going to find ourselves winning together too. And I thank you all so very, very much.